Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at some Raiders OTA practice news and notes from today that I've been able to gather. Also, we're going to do a little bit more of an in-depth look at some notes that I have on Aidan O'Connell. Gaardner, Minshew, Zamir White are probably the top three names. You could also sprinkle in a little Dylan Parham, Thayer Munford in there. Then also find out which Raiders players missed practice today. According to reports, there were 12. Last, Alex Leatherwood. I bet you didn't think I'd say his name. Alex Leatherwood signed with an AFC West team today. Not the Raiders. Find out which team he is joining. I can't believe that he's still even in the league, man. To make sure you never miss anything going on around the silver and black, if you bleed silver and black, hit that subscribe button. My guy Jeremy Jugs is doing some other stuff here at Chat Sports, but guess what? Raiders updates, news, we got you covered. Make sure you don't miss anything. And tomorrow, our live show is going to be bonkers. I'm just telling you right now, it's going to be bonkers. You're not going to want to miss it. 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's going to get nuts here on the Raiders Report. All right, so reportedly 12 players were unable to practice today for the Silver and Black. On the offensive side of the football, a lot of wide receivers. Davante Adams, again, but he was in the building at least, so real talk, I ain't worried about Davante Adams. Michael Gallup, Jalen Guyton, Jeff Foreman, Tulu Griffin. For Jeff Foreman and Tulu Griffin, two UDFAs trying to make this roster. They have yet to be able to get on the field, so that one kind of sucks. Jalen Guyton has been a receiver that's had some injury issues. Michael Gallup has had some issues in the past as well. I am going to keep an eye and monitor both of those situations because a lot of injury history with both of those players, and just because the Raiders signed both of those dudes after the NFL draft, that doesn't mean that they're a lock to make the roster. In fact, I think that Guyton is more than likely not going to make it, and I think Gallup isn't going to get used as much as what some people think. Coming up, though, find out who did miss practice on the defensive side of the football, and we're going to talk about both of those guys. Before I get into that, though, two other players on the offensive side of the ball that missed practice today, Jackson Powers-Johnson and Kolton Miller. My question to you is, out of both of those players, which one concerns you more? Are you more concerned that Kolton Miller is dealing with an injury, or are you more concerned that the rookie out of Oregon, JPJ, is dealing with an injury? Let me know down below who you're more concerned about, Kolton Miller or Jackson Powers-Johnson. The reason why I'm going to go with Kolton Miller is because I love me some JPJ. But in terms of who's the most important player on our offensive line, you might be able to argue Andre James because he's the center. I'm going to say it's the blind side of Kolton Miller because he's protecting either Aidan O'Connell or Gaardner Minshew. And you saw last season when he was unable to go how the Raiders' offensive line took a step back. Now, yes, you do have Thayer Munford who could be over there. Andres Pete is a really solid backup left tackle, left guard option. But I am nervous about this because Miller dealt with this shoulder injury last season. I'm not sitting up here saying that he's still dealing with this shoulder injury, but I am a believer where there's smoke, there's fire. You guys know that. And there's been a lot of smoke around that Miller is still dealing with something, hence why he's been unable to practice, hence why he is on the sidelines working almost like one-on-one. I am a little bit nervous. I'm hopefully able to get some more updates here on both of those injuries, but the fact that neither of those guys are out there, I'm literally just hoping that it's precautionary, it's May, and I hope that AP and Telesco can just tell all of us to, hey, just chill the hell out. All right, let's go now to the defensive side of the football. Matthew Butler, Nesta, Jade, Silvera, and Marquan McCall from the defensive tackle standpoint, unable to go. And, for McCall and Nesta, Jade, both guys that were re-signed this, or both guys were signed this offseason, not Nesta Jade, but Marquan McCall was. And then for a guy like, Nesta Jade, he's been kind of bouncing around a little bit in terms of practice squad. He was drafted in the 7th round last season. And then Matthew Butler, a player that was drafted in the 5th round back in 2022. All three of those guys are roster bubble candidates. I would say the best one to make the team is going to be Butler. But between Nesta Jade and Marquan McCall, I'd say right now both of those guys have definitely less than a 50% chance of making it. At corner, it's Cornell Armstrong, and linebacker Darien Butler. Butler's been kind of battling injuries since he's been in the NFL, and I know he's a member, or was a member, with Antonio Pierce at Arizona State. But with them drafting Eichenberg, with them having Amari Burney, with them having Luke Masterson, I can't paint a picture that
Butler and definitely not Armstrong end up making this team. All right, the next thing that we're going to get into here are some of the notes that I have on Aidan O'Connell and Gaardner Minshew. I know that I've said in the past that I was told, which I was, that Aidan has kind of been like the one that's in the lead thus far, and I think that's more of just him getting the first team reps and him just being more comfortable and him just being with the Raiders compared to Minshew, who wasn't last season. Based on the notes that I have so far, there are no clear leaders from today's practice. Both guys got a lot of reps with the first team, with the starters, which is going to be what happens throughout the majority of this offseason. It's going to be the plan that Antonio Pierce, that Telesco, that Luke Getsy have had in mind, that they're going to do their best to see which quarterback can stand out. And until somebody really proves to them that, hey, this is clearly the better guy, they're going to be splitting legit starter reps. So I'm really curious to see how that impacts maybe some of the younger players like Brock Bowers. How does that impact the Michael Mayer? Does it impact the wide receiver core at all? Because you got to learn two different QBs. One thing that I did think that was kind of interesting that I heard Rich Scangarillo, Raiders quarterback coach, talk about today was when he talked about Gaardner Minshew. And, you know, I'm always a big believer, actions speak louder than words, but sometimes when people say stuff, you absolutely have to listen. And Scangarillo, when he was talking about Minshew, one of the words that he threw out was grit. Also, you know, said that back from his time in college, loved like the moxie that he's got in him. Say he's got like that inner baller or something like that in him. To me, the fact that he's going out there and he's saying that and you can see the excitement level in his voice, it's going to be something that I monitor because we talk a lot about Antonio Pierce. We talk a lot about Tom Telesco. We talk a lot about Luke Getsy. I mean, the quarterback coach has got to like the guy that he's going with, too. So for Rich Scangarillo to talk about Minshew the way that he did today, it's just going to be something that I'll sit back and, you know, just save in the back of your mind. Something that I thought you guys should save in the back of your mind as well. Zamir White, he talked today to the media, and White's got a hell of an opportunity in front of him to be able to go out there and be the number one running back for the Las Vegas Raiders in an offense that is expected to run the football on a team that's going to have a good defense where you're going to want to rely on that running game. Zamir White said that he was asked today, I guess I should say, you know, how are you trying to improve your game? What are you trying to do this offseason? And, you know, Zeus had his hoodie up, and Zeus looks like a guy that's like you never want to get into a bar fight with. Looks like a guy that's getting ready to go on to an MMA fight, a boxer, and you see him walking down the street, I'm going the complete opposite direction. Unless he's on my team, then I'm going to be the toughest guy in that bar. But Zamir said that, you know, he's working on everything, catching the ball, running the ball, trying to make guys miss one-on-one more, and he wants to be the best that he can be. He knows that he has an amazing opportunity taking over for Josh Jacobs, and this could be a year that literally changes not only his life, but his family's lives and generation lives. I mean, if he goes out and he balls out and he finishes the year with, you know, we're talking like legit over 1,000 rushing yards and close to double-digit touchdowns, he's going to make himself some money, and he's going to make his family some money as well. Also, you know, Zamir White was talking about just like what practice is like. And last week, one of the Raiders players didn't like indirectly say like Josh McDaniels' practices suck. But, yeah, you kind of heard Michael Mayer at least just be like, yeah, this year it's a lot more laid back. It's not as complicated. We're actually allowed to go out there and enjoy our jobs and have fun. You can read between the lines of what Michael Mayer was saying there. But Zamir White also said, and he wasn't the only one, Jack Jones kind of chimed in on this as well, was just kind of like, you know, the guys like want it more this year. There's no dragging around. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of people wanting to go in there and compete. There's people in there, you know, just wanting to be in the facility. And you saw that really, really early on this offseason when guys like Max Crosby were showing up when they didn't have to. Hell, Max was apparently in the building like every single day this entire offseason, where it doesn't always happen when you have some of these older players, and you're seeing it early on that there is a lot of competition because that's what Antonio Pierce wants. Competition with the new regime. Zamir White talked about it. Jack Jones said, like, the energy is just different. Like, it's just a totally different vibe, and based off of a lot of the reports that have come out, a lot of the things that we've heard, it is just a totally different vibe. Actually, a Raider player told me last week the one word that he used was refreshing. I mean, you know, I got to take a rocket science to figure out that people are going to want to go out there and compete and play for Antonio Pierce. And I always say it's easy to show up on game day. But the way teams take that next step and they become fringe playoff teams to legit contenders, the Super Bowl contenders, the Super Bowl champions, is you got to compete in May, June, July, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like, it's the only way you're going to get better. And it sounds like this regime, this team is doing that for their coaching staff this year. The next note that I have here is that, yes, Jackson Powers-Johnson was unable to practice today, so take this next thing that I'm going to say maybe with a little bit of a grain of salt, but then I also am going to say if you follow the tea leaves, if you followed a lot of the reports that have been coming out from OTAs, maybe it's not that big of a surprise. But one of the notes that I have today is that Dylan Parham and Thayer Munford have been working a lot next to each other. When the Raiders drafted JPJ, I said that I expect him to be the left guard of this football team, and I expected Dylan Parham to get kicked over to the right side. Maybe it's a surprise, maybe it's not, because if JPJ's there, and remember when Jackson Powers-Johnson was practicing, he was working on the left side. I am curious to see if the Raiders do have that plan, and maybe they're kind of identifying this plan to you, that it's going to be Thayer Munford at right tackle, Dylan Parham at right guard, and Antonio Pierce has spoke nothing but confidence in Munford. And the Raiders have made it pretty clear that Munford's going to be on that right side. Yeah, they might need to use him in a pinch on the left side if something were to happen to Kolton Miller. But Munford's going to be your starting right tackle. And the fact that those two have been working so much together this offseason with the first team makes me believe that they're already kind of outlining, yes, this Raiders plan is Dylan Parham at right guard, Thayer Munford at right tackle. I was told today that the defense is just really, really good. The text message that I got was like, Mitch, this one will make you smile. The defense is finally really, really good. And I was told that, the defense is clearly the better unit than offense, but nobody that's watching this video right now, I think, is ultimately that surprised by that remark, especially with me saying Kolton Miller, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Davante Adams did not practice today. But, the defense is expected to be the better unit. The defensive line, from what I understand, is, way more competition than we ever thought was even humanly possible, and this team is going to win in the trenches with their defensive line, and it's just going to almost be like a trickle-down effect to the linebackers, to your secondary. But the defense, from what I get, is it's special, man. It's a really, really special team. All right, coming up next, find out where Alex Leatherwood signed. Yes, Alex Leatherwood. He ended up signing, and just because I'm seeing it roll across my dock here, the Chiefs got into more trouble today, which Kansas City's having a really, really bad offseason, and I'll tell you what, it is not a very good look for Kansas City and everything that has happened to them. So first off, what happened was Chiefs defensive end Isaiah Buggs, if you guys hear anything in the background, it's our Steelers show, is facing 2 misdemeanor warnings issued by Tuscaloosa police for second-degree cruelty to dogs. Buggs is accused of leaving 2 dogs locked on his property with no access to food or water, according to the Tuscaloosa Patch. So that is the police station in Tuscaloosa, though Buggs is trying to claim that they're after him. Bottom line, Kansas City, there's a lot of bullshit going on with that organization. But then Alex Leatherwood, the former Raider, has decided to sign with Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. The reason why I'm even smiling about it is because I really hope that there's some way that Leatherwood finds himself on that football field week 1, because Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz, Tyree Wilson, Adam Butler, you name anybody, they're going to be licking their chops to go up against one of the worst first-round picks that the Raiders have ever had. And you know what? The way that I'm going to end this show is this. We were talking about this amongst the office. Let's go back to Gruden and Mayock, the Raiders' worst first-round pick since Gruden and Mayock. If you're like, Mitch, who are they? I'm glad and not so glad you asked. At number 4 overall, Cleveland Ferrell. At number 24 overall, it looks like it's Josh Jacobs. At 27 overall, it was Jonathan Abram. The following year, then, the Raiders went ahead and they drafted Henry Ruggs at 12. They drafted Damon Arnett at 19. The following year, then, they drafted Alex Leatherwood at number 17 overall. The following year, they traded for Davante Adams, so that was solid. And then last season, Tyree Wilson. So if you could, please let me know down below, out of all those, the worst first-round pick.
For more videos around the Las Vegas Raiders, make sure you click the subscribe button right here. I got you covered on all things going on around the silver and black. If you want even more videos, these personally are Chugs' favorite. He tells you to recommend that. Check out those. If you want to know my dog Chuck's favorite, those are right there. Videos from my two favorite people and a dog, and more videos here from the Raiders Report. I don't know if I'm going to be able to end this video.